let their wisdom shine. Today, I want to talk to you about shoulder stand, and I'm going to show you some versions of another version of it that might be a little more accessible. So, um, excuse me. I had a I had a really fun weekend and I'm paying the price for it. Okay, anyway, so I want to talk to you about shoulder stand. The name of shoulder stand in Sanskrit is sarvāṅgāsana, and sarva is a beautiful Sanskrit word, actually. It means everything. And it's a combination of sa, which is sattva, and ra, which is raja. And then va, I can't remember what that one means, but it's sort of like it means everything in the universe. It's a beautiful term. And anga means limbs, so all limbs pose. And most of the time, people will think like, "Oh, that means you use all your limbs to do this pose," which is one interpretation for sure of sarvāṅgāsana. But really, I think what it means is the pose that helps everything. It's a very comprehensive pose, and it's been taught for many years as a pose that is very beneficial for many conditions, for many health conditions, including things like metabolic issues, diabetes, thyroid issues, right? Um, and pardon me for a moment. I need a sip of tea. Um, and so it's been taught for many years with that kind of idea. And there's also been a lot of critique of sarvāṅgāsana, like, oh, this is horrible for your neck. And, your neck can only go into like, most people's necks will go into some, I don't know, it's like 75 or 80 degrees of flexion. And yet in sarvāṅgāsana, you need 90 degrees of flexion, and then you're loading it, and it's bad for the cervical thing. So many anatomy folks have broken down sarvāṅgāsana and have concluded that it's not healthy. You shouldn't do it, right? I don't know if you saw my blog last week. My blog said yoga poses was called "Yoga Poses Are Not Your Problem." It's true. If the poses are neutral, it's our sort of strive drive complex that makes us want to do these things in the first place. That can cause, that's where the problems come from, is by pushing ourselves, right? So every pose has beautiful ways of accessing it, if you understand, if you understand how to make poses accessible. And it's not something here's something I want to explain. This isn't something you just figure out. This is something I learned through years of training in Vini Yoga. Like there are many forms of every asana, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel and think like, oh, to make a pose accessible, I just need to invent a different way of doing it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's already been invented, So there's many ways to access every pose. So today I want to show you a way to access sarvāṅgāsana that may be more accommodating, especially for folks that have challenges with flexion because of the problems that flexion can create for the neck. So let's go ahead and get into it. All you'll need for this is a bolster. Now, I want to say one thing, which is that typically, if I was teaching a class, and I did just teach this class in my Subtle Yoga Resilience Society this morning, which is why I'm sharing it here. I set you up. Like, I take a long time to get you ready to do this. So I'm not suggesting that you just jump in and do this with me. You may want to do some asanas beforehand, particularly some asanas that mobilize the neck, and you may feel more comfortable if you do that first. That being said, this version it would fall into the category of what's called viparita karani. The viparita karani is mentioned in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. It's one of the first Hatha Yoga texts. And it's mentioned as a category of poses that are helpful for reversing. It's called, the viparita karani means the reversing process. So this category of poses where we invert, it includes everything from elevating your knees on a bolster to putting your feet on a chair or putting your legs up the wall using bolster all the way to shoulder stand. This category of poses where we invert is meant to be very helpful for keeping your body healthy and young as you age. The reversing process means reversing the aging process. And some of the superlative claims that have been made around these poses include, like, if you do it for 4 hours a day, your gray hair will go, will get dark again or whatever. I just can't go there. It's a little too much for me. But that doesn't mean that they're not helpful for longevity. Like, it makes sense to me that they're helpful for longevity, because you're giving the veins a rest. It's helpful for that venous return. Well, of course, the veins are a closed system, but gravity does something. We all know elevating the legs is helpful. It just takes some of the pressure out of the vein. And there's all sorts of other speculation about how these things work. I don't know that there's so much science behind them yet. There hasn't been a ton of science behind individual poses. Nevertheless, like, I feel good when I do them, and I hope you do too. So here's, I gave up on shoulder stand at one point because I was like, oh, my neck. And then I realized, and I kept studying, and I was like, oh, there's many ways that you can do shoulder stand. So you need a bolster, and for this version, and you come down, and I think it's really good to practice some cobra and some bridge pose before you do this, which I already did. So I'm going to just show you. Then you slide your bolster under your hips. Then you want to have the hips resting on the bolster so it's comfortable to lift your legs. If the bolster is too low, it'll feel like it's slipping. And if it's too high up there, you'll feel like you're arching your back, right? So you got to find that sweet spot. It's somewhere a little bit on the lumbar and a little bit on the sacrum. And then you start to take the legs up. So everybody knows legs up the bolster. This is great pose, does lots of things. But here's some little more creative ways to work with it, and also get some extra pressure into the abdominal organs, which may be helpful for their functioning. So inhale, the legs straighten. As you exhale, you take your knees in the direction of your ears. They don't have to touch your ears, they're going in that direction. Inhale, legs straighten. And on the exhale, the knees again, moving towards the ears. Do that a few times. Now, on my exhale, I am also working with my abdominal musculature, work into the belly there. So I'm using my exhale and the secondary musculature of exhalation to massage into the belly. And then this time you can stay with the knees in towards the chest. And some people like to do this. Inhale, take the right leg out. So it's like going towards a plow. Exhale back. Inhale, left leg. And exhale back. And then some people may want to do this with their hands. So inhale, right leg. So just give a little extra. Then exhale back, and then inhale, left leg. If that's not easy for you, it's not easy for you to grab your toe. Of course, you don't have to do the hands. You can just work the leg. You could even have your hands behind your knees. That's another way. And then you could do both legs. So it's a little bit of a plowish kind of pose. Inhale, on the exhale, I get a little extra work in the belly, work into those abdominal organs. You could stay here if you wanted to, maybe working with your toes. So that's kind of plow-ish. So all of this, by the way, is much less pressure into my cervical spine than if I was doing a shoulder stand where I was holding my hips up. When you finish that, you want to bring your feet back down to the floor, lift up your hips, remove the bolster. And then it's nice to have a few moments in Shavasana, of course, because that helps. Shavasana is just a wonderful pose to use at the end of practice, but also you can use it during your practice as a way to reflect, just going into that interoceptive pause and noticing how your body feels and noticing how it responds to the practice. Typically, shoulder stand is counterposed with fish, and not because fish is like anatomically the best pose for it. And there's maybe in another video I'll show you this pose, an adaptation of fish pose. But because fish pose helps to create an opposite effect in the physiology and the organs. So I'm really looking forward to the science as it starts to emerge about the specific benefits of individual poses and where the yogis have left us their wisdom, from their knowledge base. Agamana, it's called in Sanskrit, the wisdom or the authority. They've left us that. But I'm really looking forward to how science helps us to understand the benefits of each asana. And I think that will probably be coming, maybe in my lifetime. I don't know. Thank you so much for being here. Please leave a comment, and I'll see you again next week. Take care.